Why, hello there. I'm Sin. We are in the Book Nook, and today we're going to talk about my top 10 reads of the year that were not horror. I read a lot of horror. So these are my top 10 that fall into basically any other genre. Whether it's fantasy or a mystery or nonfiction, everything else falls into this umbrella because, like I said, most of what I read is horror. Some of the books on this list will not be from this year specifically, but a lot of them are. So there'll be like a handful that are not from 2024, but most will be. So they're the best that I've read this year. The first one is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. And this is just a cozy witchy book. It's super cute. It's a feel-good story, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. As one of the few witches in Britain, Micah Moon knows that she has to hide her magic, keep her head down, stay away from other witches so their powers don't mingle and draw attention. And as an orphan who lost her parents at a young age when she was raised by strangers, she's used to being alone and she follows the rules. With one exception, an online account where she posts videos pretending to be a witch. She thinks no one will take it seriously. But then someone does. An unexpected message arrives begging her to travel to the remote and mysterious Nowhere House to teach three young witches how to control their magic. It breaks all the rules, but Micah goes anyway, and is immediately tangled up in the lives and secrets of not only her three charges, but also an absent archaeologist, a retired actor, two long-suffering caretakers, and Jamie, the handsome, prickly librarian of Nowhere House, who would do anything to protect the children. And as far as he's concerned, a stranger like Micah is a threat, an irritatingly appealing threat. So, if it's cozy, there's probably a romance involved. What do you think, Mr. Grumpy Pants and Micah? They might hit it off eventually, but not at first. At first, they're gonna be buttholes to each other, and eventually they're not. And it's super cute. I loved it, and I love witchy books. After that one is a beautiful little nonfiction about people who collect trees and have a arboreal obsession. And it's beautifully illustrated. I was surprised by how much I loved it. It was so sweet and so heartfelt. And you get these stories of these people and their connection to trees and why they collect them, what they do with them and whatnot. So I love horror, I love cozy stuff, and I love nature books. I'm a gardener, so I'm always out getting in the dirt and, have a chaotic garden because I'm somewhat chaotic. But I love reading books that have to do with like the earth and trees and whatnot. And this book is by Amy Stewart, and she discovered a community of tree collectors. So she expected to meet horticultural fanatics driven to plant like every species of oak or maple. But she also discovered that the urge to collect trees springs from something deeper and more profound, a longing for community, a vision for the future, and a path to healing and reconciliation. And I think those things are what made this book, like some of these people's stories, so touching and like heartfelt. In this slyly humorous, informative, and often poignant volume, Stewart brings us captivating stories of people who spend their lives in pursuit of rare and wonderful trees and are transformed in the process. Vivian Kay has forged a connection to her Korean elders through her persimmon orchard. The former poet laureate W.S. Merwin planted a tree almost every day for more than 3 decades until he turned a barren estate into a palm sanctuary. Joe Hamilton cultivates pines on land passed down to him by his once enslaved great-grandfather, building a legacy for the future. And those are just some of the stories you get. I would highly recommend it if you like nonfiction, if you like books about nature and people's connection to it. It's really good. As are all these books on this list. I put them in order from like starting at 10, going all the way up to 1, with 1 being the best, and 10, there's no least. None of these are least. It's just I like some a little bit more than others. So, that's how it goes. All right, so after this one, we have another nonfiction called If You Can't Take the Heat by Geraldine DeRuyter. This book is fantastic. So, Geraldine DeRuyter is a food blogger. She's also written for many major publications. This book has different vignettes of her life, and so we'll give you a little backstory. It's super funny. This is kind of like what kicked off and kind of was her rise to going viral, I guess you would call it. So when celebrity chef Mario Batali sent out an apology letter for the sexual harassment allegations made against him, he included a recipe for cinnamon rolls, of all things. So Geraldine DeRuyter decided to make the recipe. And she happened to make food journalism history along with it. She also wrote an essay with a scathing commentary about the pervasiveness of misogyny in the food world that would be read millions of times, and was lauded by industry luminaries from Martha Stewart to New York Times restaurant critic Pete Wells and Woodland DeRuiter in the middle of a media firestorm. She found herself on the receiving end of dozens of threats when all she wanted to do was make something to eat and, okay, fine, maybe take down the patriarchy. So you get stories that are from her life, that are true stories, painfully funny adventures in gastronomy, and we'll learn how she finally got a grip on her debilitating anxiety by emergency meal planning for the apocalypse, and you are probably deeply worried that in times of desperation that she would eat your pets, and she says, yes, I absolutely would. Or how she learned to embrace her hanger, because women can be a lot of things, but we can't be angry. It's a fantastic book. I would highly recommend it if you like feminine rage and humor and food. Go read this book. It's amazing. I love her. She's awesome. So after that, one of the big things too with my channel is I love paranormal, and I love either paranormal nonfiction and fiction. And this next book is paranormal nonfiction that reads like fiction. So it's Theater of the Mind, Tales from the Darkness of Ghosts, UFOs, Aliens, Monsters, and Other Strange Stories of the Supernatural. This is by Dave Schrader. And some of these stories actually happen to him, and then others are just he's heard and gathered and collected from being in the field for so many years. And some of the stories are absolutely terrifying. They're fantastic, but they're scary, and they keep you up late at night. The realms of the ethereal and physical appear to be weaving themselves deeper into one another with the passing of every year. People from around the world are experiencing strange phenomena, encountering creatures of unknown origins with alarming numbers. It's time we accepted the fact that what we consider normal and supernatural are set on a collision course, and will finally reveal the proof that we are not alone and never have been. Behind every closet door, the story about what's in that closet in this book, the closet story, is scary and I hate it. And under every bed, and in the dark forest, in the light of day, in every town, in every state of every country around the world, darkness is rising and worlds will merge. These are just some of the stories pointing to that inevitability. And these are stories about ghosts and cryptids and weird things that come from the closet that you don't want to see them. They have like a story about the black-eyed kids. Oh, those are the creepiest evil demon children. Ugh, scary. And it's nonfiction. These are like possibly happened. So that's what makes it even more scary to me. And it's absolutely awesome. Would highly recommend. If you're interested in any of these books, I will have links to them down below. Some of those are affiliate links, not all of them. After that one, we have Cackle by Rachel Harrison. And Rachel Harrison does like a lot of horror, but this one I didn't really feel like was horror. It was like a cozy fantasy, and it's so cute. It's so cute. I loved it so much. If you haven't read Rachel Harrison yet, I highly recommend it. This is the third book I've read by her. I've read Such Sharp Teeth, which was a werewolf book, and then So Thirsty, which is a vampire book, and Cackle, which is witches. So werewolves, witches, vampires, oh my. So Cackle is about this woman named Annie, and her whole life she's always played it like nice and safe. And then she ends up being dumped by her longtime boyfriend, and she seeks a fresh start. And she can't really afford to live in New York City where she was living before, so she accepts this teaching position that moves her from Manhattan to this small little village upstate. And it's super cute where she ends up going to live. Super cute town, little cute farmer's market. And she's stunned by how perfect and picturesque the town is. So the people are all friendly and warm. Her new apartment is super cute too, minus the oddly persistent spider infestation, but she doesn't really mind, so that's fine. Then Annie meets Sophie. Beautiful, charming, magnetic Sophie, who takes a special interest in Annie and who wants to be her friend. More importantly, she wants Annie to stop apologizing and start living for herself. That's how Sophie lives. Annie can't help but gravitate toward the self-possessed Sophie, wanting to spend more and more time with her, despite the fact that the rest of the town folks seem a little bit afraid of her because she's a witch. And like, okay, there are some things. Sophie's appearance is uncanny and ageless, and her mansion is in the middle of the woods, and it feels a little unearthly. It also might be haunted. And she does seem to wield a certain power, but she couldn't be, could she? Well, I mean, the book is called Cackle. You kind of know like going into it, it's gonna be witchy, and it's so freaking cute. I absolutely loved it. If you like witchy books, if you like cozy books, Cackle by Rachel Harrison. If you haven't gotten to it yet, do it. It's great. Okay, so next up we have my favorite mystery that I read this year. And there's also going to be a second book in the series. I don't know if this is just going to keep going or if it's going to be just two books, but there is another book coming out that's either out now or very soon. So this is How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin, and it was so freaking good. I suspected everyone. There was a lot of characters in the story, and at some point they all seem very guilty. Little bit of backstory. It's 1965, and teenager Frances Adams is at a county fair with her two best friends, but her night takes a kind of bad turn when a fortune teller is like, hey, one day you're going to be murdered. Frances spends a lifetime trying to solve a crime that hasn't happened yet. Why would you tell someone that? Anyways, so this affects her whole life. She basically is trying to figure out who's going to kill her at some point. So she compiles dirt on like every person who crosses her path in an effort to prevent her own demise. For decades, no one takes Frances seriously until nearly 6 years later when Frances is finally found murdered, like she always said she would be. So in present day, Annie Adams is summoned to a meeting at the sprawling country estate of her wealthy and reclusive great aunt Frances. But by the time Annie gets there, Frances is already dead. So Annie's determined to catch a killer, but thanks to Frances's lifelong habit of digging up secrets and lies, it seems every endearing eccentric villager might just have a motive for her murder. Can Annie safely unravel the dark mystery at the heart of Castle Knoll, or will dredging up the past end up throwing her in the path of the killer? What do you think happens? I mean, what happens in most mysteries? They probably end up in the path of the killer because they don't want this crime solved. I did not know who it was all the way up until the end. And it was really enjoyable to read. I thought it was fun. It kept me guessing. It was an addictive read and a lot of fun. So I definitely want to read the next book. After this one, we have A Cozy Fantasy, which is Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. And this is the second book in the Emily Wilde trilogy. It basically has to do with the Fae. Emily Wilde, in the book prior to this, which was the Encyclopedia of Fairies, I want to say it was called, she was compiling this encyclopedia of the Fae, and it's just like a cute, cozy little fantasy, and we continue on in this book. So Emily is this genius scholar of fairy folklore who just wrote the world's first comprehensive encyclopedia of fairies. She's learned many of the secrets of the hidden ones on her adventures, and also from her fellow scholar and former rival, Wendell Bamblebee. Because Bamblebee is more than infuriatingly charming, he's an exiled fairy king on the run from his murderous mother, and she's horrible, and in search of a door back to his realm. And despite Emily's feelings for Bamblebee, she's not ready to accept his proposal of marriage. Loving one of the fair folk comes with secrets and dangers. She also has a new project to focus on, a map of the realms of fairy. And while she's preparing her research, Bamblebee lands her in trouble yet again, because he's kind of obnoxious. When assassins sent by his mother invade Cambridge. Now Bamblebee and Emily, they're on their way to another adventure, this time to the picturesque Austrian Alps, where Emily believes they may find a door to Bamblebee's realm and the key to freeing him from his family's dark plans. And it's super cute and zany and fun and a little bit of darkness in it as well, and it's just an awesome book, and I cannot wait to read the third book. If you haven't read the first one, obviously get the first one. If you like that, move on to this one. I thought it was awesome. It was a great follow-up book in this series. Now we're getting into the top three. Number 3 is In Ascension by Martin McGuinness. And this book was longlisted for the 2023 Booker Prize. It's about this character named Lee who grew up in Rotterdam and was drawn to the waterfront as an escape from her unhappy home life and volatile father. Her father was an a-hole who beat the daughters. Enchanted by the undersea world of her childhood, she excels in marine biology, travels the globe to study ancient organisms, and when there's a trench discovered in the Atlantic Ocean, Lee joins the exploration team, hoping to find evidence of the Earth's first life forms. What she instead finds calls into question everything we know about our own beginnings. Her discovery leads to the Mojave Desert and an ambitious new space agency. Drawn deeper into the agency's work, she learns that the Atlantic Trench is only one of several related phenomena from across the world, each piece linking up to suggest a pattern beyond human understanding. Lee knows that to continue working with the agency will mean leaving behind her declining mother and her younger sister, and faces an impossible choice to remain with her family or to embark on a journey across the breadth of the cosmos. So it's from the sea to space, and all the things in between. And it was such a beautiful and poetically written book. It's emotional, it's sad, it's just visionary, and it's so many things. And I picked it up on a whim because I've said before, I like water-based stories, and this had a lot of that in it. And it's so strange. And it seemed like a fiction that could have been a nonfiction with how it was written. Absolutely fantastic. I do have a standalone review for this if you want some more info on it. I will have that down below. And a lot of these books I have standalone reviews for, so I'll have the video links down below in the description if you want to check those out. All right, so book number 2 is The Serviceberry by Robin Wall Kimmerer. This is the author who wrote the book Braiding Sweetgrass. This book, it's a shorty. It's just over 100 pages. It's got beautiful illustrations in it. Kimmerer is an indigenous scientist and author. The book is about her harvesting serviceberries alongside the birds, and she considers the ethic of reciprocity that lies at the heart of the gift economy. How, she asks, can we learn from indigenous wisdom and the plant world to reimagine what we value most? Our economy is rooted in scarcity, competition, and the hoarding of resources, and we have surrendered our values to a system that actively harms what we love. Meanwhile, the serviceberry's relationship with the natural world is an embodiment of reciprocity, interconnectedness, and gratitude. The tree distributes its wealth, its abundance of sweet, juicy berries to meet the needs of its natural community. And this distribution ensures its own survival. As Kimmerer explains, serviceberries show us another model, one based upon reciprocity where wealth comes from the quality of your relationships, not the illusion of self-sufficiency. And it's just, the idea behind it is very moving and quite beautiful if it was something we could, embrace. Like if you're a gardener and you have an overabundance of food that you grow, that you're like putting out a little table in front of your house with stuff that's just like free to take, the vegetables and fruits and stuff, maybe herbs that you grow, little free libraries, people like taking and bringing free books for people to share, stuff along those lines. And it's a great little book. And I haven't read Braiding Sweetgrass, but I just got it recently, so I'm going to be reading that very soon. So my number 1 book this year was The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown. And that is a fantasy. It's kind of, I would say, is it a dark fantasy? Kind of. The main character is Cassie Andrews, and she works in this New York City bookshop. She shelves books, makes coffees, and is living an unassuming, normal life. But then one day, one of her favorite customers, this lonely yet charming old man, dies right in front of her. And Cassie is devastated. She always loved his stories, and now she has nothing to remember him by. Oh, this book made me cry like 4 times. It's really good. It hits you right in all like the frickin' feels. Okay, so, but nothing but the last book that he was reading. But this is no ordinary book. It's The Book of Doors. Inscribed with enigmatic words and mysterious drawings, it promises Cassie that any door is every door. You just need to know how to open them. Then she's approached by this gaunt stranger in a rumpled black suit with a Scottish brogue who calls himself Drummond Fox. He's a librarian who keeps watch over a unique set of rare volumes. The tome now in Cassie's possession is not the only book with a great power. There is a bunch more, and some of them are bad news bears. But it is the one most coveted by those who collect them. Now, Cassie's being hunted by those few who know of the special books. With only her roommate Izzy to confide in, she has to decide if she will help the mysterious and haunted Drummond protect the Book of Doors and the other books in his secret library's care from those who will do evil. Because only Drummond knows where the unique library is, and only Cassie's book can get them there. And he's been locked out of that for like years and years and years. But he has the Book of Shadows, and the Book of Shadows allows him to elude people and escape from those that might cause him harm. But there are those willing to kill to obtain those secrets, and a dark force in the form of a shadowy, sadistic woman is at the very top of that list. And that woman is so effing evil, and that's why I call it a dark fantasy, because there's a lot of gory, horrible deaths in this. But it's such an immaculately told story, and it's so good. Like I said, like you just ride the waves of emotion. I cried like 4 freaking times. So good. I have a standalone review for this, and that video will be down below where it gave you a lot bigger picture of the story. But yeah, if you read one book off this list, read The Book of Doors. So if you're a fan of videos where I talk about multiple things that I'm reading or have read, the next video coming up will be about that. So stick around, check it out. And if you enjoyed hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.